Hello class. This video is going to focus on 1.7, which is midpoints and bisectors. The goal of this video is I can find the coordinate of a midpoint on a number line. You want to open your textbook to page 49 where you will begin to take notes. So we have the midpoint of a line segment is the point halfway between the endpoints of the segment. A point is equidistant from other points if it is the same distance from them. The midpoint separates the segment into two segments with a ratio of 1 to 1. So you can use the section formula to derive the midpoint formula. So the midpoint of a segment is going to cut the segment in half, and then you'll have two congruent segments. So if segment AB has endpoints at x1 and x2 on a number line, then the midpoint M of segment AB has coordinate M equals x1 plus x2 all over 2. So you have to add the x1, add the x2, and then divide it by 2. So you are basically finding the mean of that segment. Okay, here's an example for us to try. Example 1, find the midpoint on a number line. This is on page 49. So we are going to start with the number line. So we're going to call this first point our x1. And the second point is going to be our x2. And then we have our midpoint formula, m equals x1 plus x2 all over 2. And we are going to start by substituting our values for x1 and x2. So x1 is negative 3 plus x2 is 8. And then that's going to be over 2. And then we can simplify that. You can use a calculator to simplify. So we have negative 3 plus 8 is 5 over 2. And if we divide that, we should get 2.5. So the midpoint of segment XZ is 2.5. And again, it does not really matter to me which way you give me the measurement. It could be as a fraction or as a decimal. Either way is fine. Okay, this is the think about it on page 49. Would your answer be different if you reverse the order of x1 and x2? So think about it a little bit, pause, and then come back for the answer. So if you reverse x1 and x2, so you write x2 plus x1 all over 2, your answer is not going to be different because it does not matter which order you write addition in. So no, your answer would not be different. Okay, this is example 2, midpoints in the real world. This is on page 50. So Apani works at a vintage clothing store. She wants to hang a new sign so it is centered above the dressing room doors. Given that the dressing room doors have the same width, find the point along the wall that Apani should hang the new sign. So we are going to start with the midpoint formula. M equals x1 plus x2 all over 2. And then we want to substitute our values. So in order to get our values, we have to look at the picture. So it tells us that our x1 is 7.5, x2 is 13.5. So we're going to substitute those into that equation. So we have 7.5 plus 13.5 all over 2. And then we can simplify it. Again, you can use a calculator to simplify. So we're going to do 7.5 plus 13.5, and that should be 21 over 2. And if we divide that, we should get 10.5. So that means Apani should hang the sign 10.5 feet from the left side of the wall. Okay, the section formula can be used to derive the midpoint formula for a segment on a coordinate plane. Because the midpoint separates the line segment into a ratio of 1 to 1, we substitute 1 for m and n into the formula. So this is a formula that we used in the last 2 lessons when we were finding the fractional distance. And we can use this formula to derive the midpoint formula by substituting 1 for m and n. Okay, so then our midpoint formula when we are on the coordinate plane, we've got x1 plus x2 over 2, and then y1 plus y2 over 2. So it's very similar to what we were doing with the line segment. We just have to add the y values. So if segment PQ has endpoints at P x1, y1 and Q x2, y2 on the coordinate plane, then the midpoint M of segment PQ has coordinates M and then x1 plus x2 all over 2, and then y1 plus y2 all over 2. So again, your midpoint is going to be a coordinate. So it's going to have an x value and a y value. Okay, example 3, find the midpoint on the coordinate plane. This is on page 51. So this is the check. Find the coordinates of B, the midpoint of a segment AC for A, which is -3, -2, and C, which is 5, 10. Okay, so I'm going to label A as my x1 and y1. And then I'm going to label C as x2 and y2. Okay, then I have my midpoint formula. So I'm going to just substitute my values into that midpoint formula. So we get M equals, M is for midpoint, x1 is -3, plus x2 is 5, and that's going to be all over 2. Okay, so that's my x coordinate. And then for my y coordinate, I'm going to do y1, which is -2, plus y2, which is 10, all over 2. Okay, and then we just need to simplify it. So for x, we have -3 plus 5, that is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So our x coordinate is 1. And then our y coordinate, we have -2 plus 10, which is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So the midpoint is 1, 4. Okay, that is the end of 1.7a. So remember, you need to get a 75% or better on the quiz for this video in order to move on.